Hey guys, my name is Swolbi, and this is my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke in FireRed using only fighting types. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Nuzlocke and their rules, the standard 5 are as follows. First, you can only catch the first viable encounter per route. Second, any Pokemon that faints is dead and permanently boxed. Third, only held items in battle. Fourth, the game must always be in set battle mode, meaning I can't switch Pokemon after defeating another trainer's Pokemon. And fifth, I can't level past the next gym leader's ace or the ace of the final Elite Four member. Some personal rules I play with are the Species Clause, meaning I can't catch two of the same Pokemon, and the Shiny Clause, which is the only exception to the above rules, meaning that I could catch and use a Shiny so long as the original encounter is still viable. With all of that being said, this Fighting Type Monolocke should be a nice challenge, as in Kanto, there were only 5 total encounters available with the typing, and both Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan are in the same location, meaning I'll have at max 4 Pokemon by the time I get to the champion. In addition, I won't be able to evolve Machoke into Machamp, due to constraints of the totally real copy of FireRed that I was using not allowing the feature. So, having loaded up the game, naming myself Swolbi, and giving our rival her title as Nancy, I tried to head out into the world before promptly being bonked on the head by Professor Oak and dragged back into his lab to receive my first Pokemon. I choose Bulbasaur, to make sure that Nancy is going to have a terrifying Charizard for our later encounters, the flying type being a nightmare for our punchy boys. But for now, Charmander is defeated promptly by our little grass dino, and we go on a fetch quest for Oak to gain access to Pokeballs, officially starting the run. We head back up to Viridian City to go west and hit Route 22, where we walk around until we find our first encounter, a Mankey, who we successfully catch and name Manny. Manny has an abysmal modest nature, plus special attack and minus physical attack, so I have a bad feeling about her odds. So, funnily enough, my bad feelings weren't just correct regarding Manny's ability to carry us throughout the game, but also about whether or not my recording software was going to be able to keep up. I lost all of my footage after catching Manny, but that works out just fine, because he was given a rather violent bath by Misty and her Starmie, so we were going to have to start over anyways. We start up Run 2, beat up the small lizard, and pick up Oak's parcel to run back to Route 22 and catch a second Mankey, this one a female that I name Rhonda. And fortunately, she has a neutral, bashful nature, a much better start to the run. I run around getting speed EVs from Rattata and Pidgey, hoping to pick up enough to outspeed that pesky Starmie, and after reaching high level 10, we fight our rival for the first time just north of where we met Rhonda. We start the fight off with a Leer, and my only hope here is that we don't have to worry about Sand Attack, as Rhonda doesn't have anyone else to switch out with. But my worrying is for naught, as the Leer allows Rhonda to two-shot Pidgey with tackles, giving her enough experience to level up and learn the Stab Karate Chop, which she happily uses to knock out Nancy's Charmander in a single critical hit. After speeding through Viridian Forest and avoiding Brock's gym trainers, we arrive in front of the Pewter City gym leader. Brock sends out his Geodude, and Rhonda puts him below half health on the first turn using her new Karate Chop, as Geodude just does minimal damage in return with his own tackle. A second chop does the job, and out comes Bronix's ace Onix. Onix is a sad Pokemon with little to no stats of any kind to speak of, and a single low sweep almost decimates the snake lizard. A small sliver of health remaining allows him to hit Rhonda in return with a soft rock tomb that gives a speed reduction to her. With her lowered speed stat, Onix is able to outspeed on the next turn and hit Rhonda pretty hard with a critical hit tackle, leaving her in the yellow with 9 HP. Fortunately, a single Karate Chop is enough to finish the job, as Brock doesn't heal in this battle. As I run through Route 3, I'll explain why Rhonda was underleveled for Brock. After my unfortunate first attempt, I decided that I would have to be a little bit more risky if I stood any chance of taking on Misty and winning with such a low stat Pokemon. Mankey is fine, but having a level cap of 21 where the opposing gym leader has a fully evolved Pokemon doesn't seem like very good odds. So with that in mind, I plan on beating Nancy before I fight Misty, as Surge's level cap is only 3 levels higher, and I have to be near the level cap so that beating Staryu will level up Mankey. But before all of that, I have to successfully navigate my way through Mount Moon and the Team Rocket Grunts who are littered throughout. Thankfully, the majority of the Rocket Grunts were quick work and provided little to no issue, though I did start to sweat when it came to the scientist guarding the fossils. It wasn't his Pokemon that worried me, but the fact that he had 3 that Rhonda would have to deal with back to back to back. I was lucky against his Grimer, with Fury Swipes connecting 2 turns in a row, with both landing 3 or more hits. As soon as his coughing came out, I was apprehensive, and for good reason, as Rhonda's 3 hits from Fury Swipes only put him just past half health, and that was with the last hit being a crit. As he hits back with the Smog that connects and gets the poison. I'm now battling against the clock, and to make matters worse, Rhonda misses her next Fury Swipe, while Coughing is able to hit Rhonda with a weak tackle, but it doesn't matter how weak it is as long as Rhonda's poison will work in their favor. I'm hit with more bad news, as Rhonda's next Fury Swipes only hits 2 times, leaving Coughing alive in low yellow. My saving grace here is that Coughing misses his second Smog, which allows Rhonda to finish him off with a third connecting Fury Swipe, getting enough experience to level up in the process, and increasing our remaining health from 9 to 11. Never forget. After I level up, Rhonda takes her poison damage, leaving her with just 6 HP. Out next for the scientist is Voltorb, and on the next turn, a Karate Chop isn't quite enough for the one-hit KO. But the Voltorb only goes for Screech, and misses. So with a very stress-relieved heart, I take down the Voltorb and use an antidote on Rhonda, and of course, take the only dome I'll ever get in life. Finally, on the other side of Mount Moon, I stop by the punching and kicking masters and teach both moves to Rhonda, knowing that I'll need higher damage output to be able to have a chance against both Nancy and Misty. And in what may be the final mistake of this run, I go to face Nancy on Nugget Bridge with our level 17 Rhonda. Just enough experience space left to beat Nancy and all of the required trainers ahead on Nugget Bridge and the rest of the route. But before we can worry about that, we have Nancy to deal with. The battle starts off badly, with a Mega Kick being a Mega Miss. And to make matters worse, Nancy's Pidgeotto hits us with a Sand Attack. I hit another Mega Miss as Pidgeotto does more than 2/3 of Rhonda's total health with a Gust. And before she has a chance to try to swing for the fences, she's put out of her misery with a Quick Attack. And with that, we come back to the beginning once again for our third attempt. We name our Bulbasaur appropriately, return Oak's parcel, and make our way to our third Mankey, another guy that we name Manny. But this time, Manny has the Adamant nature, plus attack and minus special attack, the perfect nature for a future Primeape. With this necessary pep in my step, I head back out to grind on Pidgey and Rattata before once again taking on Nancy and Brock and making my way through Mount Moon and finally making it to Cerulean City with both confidence and a plan. Although Manny is lower leveled this time around, I've gone into the fight with Rock Tomb instead of Mega Miss, and we have that trusty plus attack EV nature, so I have high hopes. The battle starts off amazingly with a critical hit on our first Rock Tomb. But Pidgeotto is left alive with what must be 1 HP, and of course he goes for what else but Sand Attack. Oh no. With Pidgeotto being so low health, I opt to use Karate Chop, which finishes off the first of Nancy's 4 Pokemon and pushes Manny up to level 17. Next out for Nancy is Abra, which is a blessing, as he doesn't yet have any attacking moves, so Manny is able to safely take him out with a Mega Punch, before Nancy's third Pokemon, Rattata, comes out and hits Manny pretty hard with a Stab Quick Attack, before being taken down with 1 Karate Chop. We're finally at Nancy's final Pokemon, her, for some reason unevolved, Charmander. But Manny and I are going to take all of the strokes of fortune that we can get here, as we start off with a Rock Tomb. But we miss. Pidgeotto's Sand Attack is hurting us from beyond the Pokemon Center here. Charmander hits us for exactly 15 of our 31 remaining HP, giving me a little bit of hope that we can still pull this off. But then that hope is dashed away on the next turn. Manny's second Rock Throw misses as well. Charmander hits us with another Ember, leaving us with only 2 HP remaining. All I can do here is click on Rock Tomb and accept my fate, deciding to focus more on attack EVs on my next attempt, as Manny both hits his Rock Tomb through Sand Attack and gets the crit to take out the Charmander in a single hit. I'll be honest, I thought there was no way I was going to make it past Nancy after I missed my first Rock Tomb, but Manny didn't doubt himself or our plan for a second. What a legend. With our fight with Nancy behind us, my champ of a pig monkey and I cross the Nugget Bridge and fight all of the necessary trainers along the way, getting to Bill with Manny being just at the tip of level 21, having less than 100 experience needed to level again past the cap. We help Bill out of his odd predicament, and in exchange he gives us an apparently flashy ticket to the SSM. We leave Bill's place and use a nice and convenient road back to Cerulean, healing up and preparing to take down Misty and her Starfish. We start the fight off with Manny, as Misty leads in with her Staryu. We start the battle using Mega Punch, just barely not taking down the Staryu with a single hit, as she goes for a Harden. Knowing that she's likely to use a potion on the next turn, I opt to use Focus Energy, hoping to increase my crit rate and hit at least 1 in this fight. On the next turn, we land another Mega Punch, but it just barely does over half after Staryu's Harden, at which point she uses a second Harden. Fortunately, Manny's third Mega Punch is still enough to take out the Staryu, even though we didn't get the crit. Staryu gives enough experience to Manny for him to level up, which is allowed during gym leader fights, right before Misty sends out her Starmie. With Manny still having full health, I use Mega Punch, and sure enough, all of our EV training paid off as we outspeed the Starmie. Even better, we get a crit, hitting her for 2/3 of her health, leaving her in the yellow. Starmie hits back hard with a Water Pulse, taking out just about half of our HP, and even worse, getting a confusion. If I hit myself in the next turn, Starmie's next Water Pulse will KO, and if I miss, I'll only have a single chance to try for another Mega Punch. It's all down to this move. But then I get the horrifying realization that Starmie and Manny are speed tied. Starmie goes first, leaving Manny with only 2 HP. Manny makes it through confusion, and hits with a Mega Punch, but we also leave Misty Starmie at 1 HP. Now all I can do is pray that Manny wins the speed tie. Which he does, but he still has to break through confusion. Which he does! With my heart rate finally slowing down, I take a moment to stop and think about my next move carefully. I'm already more than halfway to level 23, and if I try to go and get him a chop before Lieutenant Surge, Manny's going to be over-leveled before the third gym. So my only choice here is to push on with our starter and pick up our second team member after the third gym. As soon as we make it to Cerulean City, we heal up and go straight for the Ann. Without fighting anyone else on the ship, we head straight for Nancy in our future Cut Gym. Once again, Nancy starts off the fight with her Pidgeotto as we lead in with Manny. It starts off well with her Rock Tomb connecting and doing about 2/3 of Pidgeotto's total health, as she responds with a Gust that does just a little over half of Manny's. We finish off the Nasty Bird with a Karate Chop, and Nancy sends out her Kadabra, who now knows Confusion. Because of this, we have to take it down in a single hit with our lower accuracy Mega Punch, which fortunately connects, and takes the Kadabra down without any issues. Raticate comes in third, and fortunately doesn't use Quick Attack, allowing me to finish it swiftly with a single Karate Chop. Most likely not doing any permanent damage to the rat. Most likely. Finally, Nancy sends in her newly evolved Charmeleon. Unlike our last meeting, Manny has no sand in his eyes, so he's able to land this first Rock Tomb without any issue, doing 2/3 of Charmeleon's health, and lowering his speed. Manny then takes 15 HP of damage in return from an Ember, leaving him with only 13 left. I once again have to take down Charmeleon with my next hit, so I click Rock Tomb, and we connect. From here we go and rub an adult's shoulders? Whatever. At least he gave me this cool move for a resident HM slave. I mean HM serf. Please don't end me, YouTube. I am but a humble content creator. We make our way through Lieutenant Surge's button maze after what felt like ages to face the veteran head-on. He says something about his electric Pokemon helping him out during the war, and before my 10-year-old brain can contemplate what disasters this may have entailed, we're enthralled in the battle for our third gym badge. He leads in with a Voltorb, as I start off once again with Manny. Luckily, I was able to go pick up the Dig TM, which should give this battle an easier edge. I have Manny use Dig as Voltorb goes for a Screech. Thankfully, we're underground and unaffected, so we can come up on the next turn and take out the Voltorb in a single hit. We level up to 25 with this, and Surge sends out his Pikachu. We go for Dig once more, and while we're underground, Pikachu goes for Double Team. Oh no. Thankfully, the single Double Team isn't quite enough to make Manny miss, as he sends another Electric type to the Pokemon Center. Finally, Surge's ace Raichu comes out, and Manny is full health and ready to use Dig to his heart's content. Because I don't want Raichu playing around Double Team strats, I first lead off with Karate Chop, hoping to lower Raichu's health enough to guarantee the KO with Dig. But Karate Chop actually ends up doing about half, leaving Raichu in the yellow. Unfortunately, Raichu goes for Thunder Wave. Because of this, I'm at a risk of being paralyzed one of the 2 turns Dig needs to work, so instead, I pivot to using Mega Punch, not wanting to risk a low roll with Karate Chop. Raichu is now faster than us, so a Shockwave takes the lead this turn to do over half of Manny's HP. Because of his damage output, I know that Mega Punch was the right call. Now I just have to make it through paralysis and land the hit. And Manny is able to make it happen. Praise Arceus. I was certain that our luck with low accuracy moves was at an end, but it looks like our first 2 runs were what we needed to work out that bad juju. With a semi-comfortable distance between Manny and the next level cap, I head out and start towards Rock Tunnel to pick up our next encounter, a Machop. Funnily enough, we find another Mankey before we find our next viable encounter, but we do still get one after some searching. and we name him Dempsey. Dempsey turns out to be yet another godsend, having the jolly nature, which means raised speed and lowered special attack, as well as having the guts ability. Dempsey is going to be a clutch member of our squad. Now that we have a second teammate, we're able to hit up some previous routes for trainers that we didn't fight for some extra Poké Dollars, as well as run all the way back to Viridian Forest, where we were able to train Dempsey up in some HP EVs on Caterpie. We head back to the Rock Tunnel after the EV training with the new Pokemon that we met in the forest, Zip the Pikachu, who's able to light up our surroundings to ease the way a bit. For those of you who may be new to Nuzlocke, it's pretty standard to have a Pokemon or two in your party exclusively for the use of the HM moves necessary to get around. After making it through the Rock Tunnel, we arrive in Lavender City, where the game really starts opening up to us, with several new routes stemming from this new connection. But with that being said, both Manny and Dempsey are now at level 29, which is the cap for Erica's ace, so we have to book it straight over to her gym. We've equipped Manny with the Aerial Ace TM, and Dempsey will be able to use Poison and Paralysis for extra strength due to Guts, so I'm not too worried about the trainers in the gym, especially given that we only have to fight two of them aside from Erica. The only danger I can see here is possibly overleveling on either of our Pokemon during the two trainer fights. During the first fight, we are able to let Dempsey get paralyzed, which leaves Guts active for the second trainer. Unfortunately, at this point the experience needed to level up Manny is only 600, and Dempsey is even lower, sitting around 250. Because of this, I have to swap out not only between the both of them, but also Chiding, our other HM Pokemon, so that neither Dempsey or Manny will overlevel before Erica. I'm allowing this due to the fact that I'm only throwing Chiding in for a single turn before swapping out directly into Dempsey, who unfortunately does now have to contend with an active Reflect, while also having to deal with the Leech Seed that he gets hit with on the turn that he swapped in. On the next turn, the Gym Trainer's Execute uses Confusion, knocking Dempsey just above half health, as I have Dempsey use Revenge, as I knew that he'd already be moving second due to his paralysis. But unfortunately the plan doesn't quite work, as Dempsey stays paralyzed, and then Leech Seed takes him below half health. I'm at risk to a crit here, but I don't want to switch out to Manny, whose special defense stat leaves a lot to be desired. Dempsey takes another Confusion, surviving with 19 HP, and striking back with a Revenge that just barely doesn't KO. Leech Seed then takes Dempsey down to 7 HP, and I know that I have to switch out into Manny. On the swap, Execute uses Confusion, and surprisingly Manny only takes a little bit less than a third of his health and damage. In addition, it's on this turn that Reflect wears off. With that, Manny is able to use Aerial Ace to finish off the Execute without us losing anyone in the process. I can't believe we had so much trouble from a single egg carton. Hopefully this isn't a sign of what's to come with Sabrina. But until we get there, we have to focus on Erica. So, we heal up, use some Brick Break TMs I'd bought from the Cerulean Mart that I just kind of forgot to use, and we head back for our gym badge. Erica leads off with her Victory Bell as we lead off with Manny. Manny uses Aerial Ace for about 2/3 of the Big Zuck's health as he responds with a Stun Spore. Now that we're paralyzed and outsped, Victory Bell uses Giga Drain, doing just over a third of Manny's health, as Manny is able to break through paralysis to take out the poisonous plant. Out next for Erica is her Tangela, who uses an Ingrain on the first turn, as Manny is able to break through paralysis again to hit harder than Aerial Ace, also doing 2/3. Because of Ingrain, Tangela then gets back up to just below half health. And then on the next turn, she uses Giga Drain again as Manny stays paralyzed. Tangela then uses another Giga Drain, well over half of her health remaining, but Manny is finally able to break through the paralysis and finish off the weeds after another Aerial Ace. Due to Manny's low health, I swap out for Dempsey, as Erica's Vileplume uses Giga Drain. Vileplume starts off the next turn with the Stun Spore, which does activate Guts for Dempsey, but unfortunately I'd used Revenge, which only did a quarter of the Big Flower's health. On the next turn, Vileplume uses a Giga Drain, but that works out as I had used Revenge again, and this time Dempsey is able to hit the Big Plume with enough damage to drop him to a third of his health. I'm at range for a crit here, but I can't swap into Manny due to how low he is on health, so I use Revenge, and we survive the Giga Drain to take out the Vileplume. That's 4 badges down. With our 4th gym badge in hand, we heal up, and now we have a new level cap of 43 for both of the next available gyms. So we head to the game corner to take out Team Rocket. We make it to Giovanni after doing some pretty sick spin tricks in the basement of a gambling ring run to sell illegally bred and stolen Pokemon, and he seems pretty unperturbed that a 10-year-old just strolled into his multi-million-dollar crime ring and defeated all of his employees. He goes on a rant about Pokemon being tools, but if he really felt that way, I feel like he'd use more than just one type. I mean, just ground Pokemon? Who in their right mind would have such a narrow-minded focus when it comes to their Pokemon? I mean, if you consider them tools. I'm a totally well-adjusted individual who only uses fighting-type Pokemon due to the fact that they can help me rep it out at the gym. Anyways, Giovanni starts off the fight with his Onix, as I lead in with Dempsey. Onix uses a weak rage, which only serves to increase the damage that Dempsey's revenge does, finishing the Rock Noodle off in one blow. Rhyhorn is out next, and unfortunately he only goes for a Tail Whip on his first turn, which allows him to survive the revenge I had Dempsey use with just 1 HP. I then choose to use Brick Break on the next turn, like I probably should have in the first place. Finally out is Giovanni's Kangaskhan. I mean, sure, it looks like it could be a ground type, but come on, Giovanni. You just lost your ground type Monolocke by trying to use your normal type HM Slave in battle. Once again, I try to go for the one-hit KO with Revenge, but Dempsey flinches to a bite. So instead, we just knock it out with a Brick Break. Damn it! Left with a sliver of health, Kangaskhan uses a Mega Punch, doing half of Dempsey's total HP. So with one final Brick Break, we take out the ground-type imposter. Giovanni is pretty humble about his loss, and he even gives us a little gift. Nice. We then take the chance to go and grab some refreshing tea from a kind old lady, just for some security guard to take it from me. A horrible injustice having been done, I head into Saffron with a need for vengeance that I wrongfully enact upon an old karate dojo, even going so far as to steal a Hitmonchan for myself that I named Jackie. Jackie has a careful nature, meaning heightened special defense and lowered special attack, a perfect nature for the higher defense hit Pokemon. Unfortunately, it was only after picking up Hitmonchan that I remembered that the physical special split moves didn't start until after Gen 3, meaning that all of Hitmonchan's elemental punches are going to be next to useless. Kind of a misplay. With my only slightly useless new companion in my party, we head out back to Lavender Town to head up the Pokemon Tower. I'd been near the level cap the last time we were here, so we're only just now able to take on our rival Nancy, who's apparently been crying about some dead Pokemon this entire time. I'd feel bad about it, but I still remember Rhonda. Nancy starts off as always with her Pidgeotto, as we start off with Manny. Manny's new level advantage is enough to one-shot the Burb, forcing Nancy to send out her new addition, Execute. Stricken with PTSD from about 4 minutes ago, I go for a super effective Aerial Ace, which is enough to scramble the eggs. Next up for Nancy is her Kadabra, which would be a considerable threat if we were near in level, but a single dig does in the Psychic. Ma'am? Never really been sure what to define the Abra line as aside from humanoid. You know, the same thing applies to fighting types. I'm basically just running around with a squad of dudes with odd genetic mutations. Intrusive thoughts aside, it looks like Manny just finished off Nancy's Gyarados. With only Charmeleon left, Manny uses Dig, taking our last obstacle out in this uneven rival fight. We head up the Pokemon Tower in order to help out an old man who appears to be in trouble with Team Rocket. After we send them packing, the old man tells us that he had everything under control and was just trying to help out the Marowak soul that we'd soothed by beating it up post-mortem. Cool. Good information to have about ghosts. After meeting the old man back at his house, he gives me a flute for my trouble. I'll probably be sending Officer Jenny by later to check out the old man teaching children how to blow on flutes, but that's a Pokemon story for a filler arc. With our new tool, we're able to wake up the sleepy Snorlax, and we grab the Super Rod that will allow us to go and grab our final encounter, a Poliwag. We find one in the pool of water back in Viridian City, and name her These Hands. These Hands has a naive plus speed minus special defense nature, which isn't too bad. As a side note, while training in special attack EVs for These Hands, we ended up finding a shiny Ghastly. We can't use Sally, but I thought it was cool. Shiny Ghastly has always been one of my favorites. Now that These Hands doesn't have an ironic name, we're ready to move on with our gym challenge. Or we would be, but unfortunately our challenge is still halted in Saffron by Team Rocket. Since I don't want to overlevel fighting the Rocket Grunts after taking on the Fuchsia City Gym, we head to Silph Co first. While running around the teleporter-filled building, we encounter Nancy once again, in what might be one of the toughest fights of the run. We start the fight off with Dempsey, who we had pre-poisoned just for this fight. Nancy leads off with her newly evolved Pidgeot. On the first turn, we use Dempsey's newly learned Rock Slide to take down Pidgeot in one hit. Nancy sends an execute next, as Dempsey takes some poison damage. The turn after that, Dempsey does more than enough, landing a critical hit strength to make sure the execute goes down. Over easy. Dempsey takes poison damage as Nancy sends Alakazam out third. Unfortunately, Alakazam outspeeds Dempsey, but only goes for Future Sight. With this chance given to us from Arceus himself, Dempsey hits Alakazam with his second strength, not getting the crit, but still doing enough to one-hit KO the Alakazam. Fourth up is Nancy's ace Charizard. I'm concerned about the incoming wing attack, but my fears aren't needed, as Dempsey outspeeds and slams Charizard with a 4 times super effective Guts boosted Rock Slide. Gyarados comes in last, hitting Dempsey with Intimidate, as Dempsey takes more poison damage. I'm still worried about the Future Sight that I know is coming, so I switch out from Dempsey to Jackie, who takes both Gyarados' Twister and Alakazam's Future Sight while having just 30 HP remaining. I then swap out to Manny, who takes a Dragon Rage on his first turn, leaving him with 2/3 of his health left. Dempsey goes for Rock Tomb, but misses, letting Gyarados get off a Twister. Odd RNG aside, Manny once more goes for Rock Tomb, and lands it this time. He does a little over half of Gyarados' HP, as Gyarados goes for his Twister again. Manny has 42 HP left, so I know that I'm completely safe from Dragon Rage, and Twister has only done a little over 10 HP each use. I stay in with Manny and hope for another hit with Rock Tomb. But we miss! Gyarados goes for Dragon Rage, leaving Manny with just 2 HP left. Not wanting to lose Manny, I switch out into these hands for her first fight, and she's hit for less than 10 damage by Bite. These hands use a Psychic, hopefully enough to... Nope! Gyarados survives in the red, letting him go for another Dragon Rage. Nancy has no potions in this fight, so a second Psychic is enough for these hands to get her first KO of the run. With the worrying fight out of the way, we head on up to the top of Silph Co to take on Giovanni one more time as the Team Rocket boss. He knows we're coming, and he's prepared for us as best he could, by collecting an elite team consisting of only ground types and one normal type imposter. Truly a cunning strategy. He leads off with his Nidorino, as I start the fight off with Jackie. We start with the secret power, and Jackie does some decent damage to the little Needlehead, putting him a little over half health, and even getting off of paralysis. Go Jackie! In return, Nidorino goes for Poison Sting, doing minimal damage, but manages to get off of poison. On the next turn, I swap into Dempsey, not knowing what Nidorino is going for next, but it's just a Fury attack that he misses. Dempsey goes for Strength, and we get a crit, but I'm pretty sure Nidorino would have gone down even without it. Up next is Giovanni's Nidoqueen. Dempsey once again uses Strength, this time only taking out a 1/4 of Nidoqueen's HP. Nidoqueen responds with the Light Poison Sting, but unfortunately for Dempsey's Guts ability, no poison. Dempsey lands a second Strength, this time putting Nidoqueen below half, but on her second turn, Her Highness only goes for a Tail Whip. Hoping to get my Guts ability activated on this turn, I go for Revenge, which I know will go last, as well as doing double stab damage for being hit first. Unfortunately, Nidoqueen's Body Slam doesn't paralyze, so Dempsey's Revenge only leaves her in the red. I'm at range of a crit here, but I know that I outspeed, so I take out the Nidoqueen with one more strength. Third up is Kangaskhan, who Dempsey hits hard with a Brick Break, only barely missing the one-hit KO. Really wishing Guts had paid off like I'd hoped. Fortunately for us, Giovanni only has Kangaskhan use Rage, so with one more Brick Break, we're able to take out the Rhino Kangaroo. Last up is Rhyhorn, who similarly survives his first Brick Break in the red, only to hit back with a scary face. And then, even with the speed drops, Dempsey is able to outspeed and take out the mob boss's final Pokemon. To thank us for all that we've done for him, the CEO of Silph gives us a Master Ball, which would have been really cool if there were literally any usable Pokemon in the region left for us to catch. But with Giovanni out of our way, we have to head into the lair of our true worst enemy, Sabrina and her Psychic types. I think about a possible light screen strat, only to be reminded that none of our punchy boys can learn it. So instead, I take my second plan, having Dempsey get burned by a gambler who sits outside of Lavender Town. With my Duckman ready for the most important sweep of his life, we make our way to Sabrina. As we approach, she claims she knew we were coming, which doesn't really sit well with me. Who just sits there and waits to get their ass beat? This doesn't look good. We start the battle off with Dempsey as my first Pokemon, as she sends out Kadabra. I use Dempsey's newly learned Return, and he easily gets the one-hit KO. With Kadabra taken care of, Dempsey levels up to 44, which is just what I needed for this battle, even if this means he won't be available to use against Koga. Next out is Sabrina's Mr. Mime, which only makes me think that she's got even more treachery up her sleeves. The only thing worse than clowns? Clown mimes. And I swear if I hear one word about Clussy from any of you. Moving on. Dempsey hits the mime with another return, knocking her out in one hit. Equal rights, equal fights. Third out for Sabrina is her ace, Alakazam. I click on return, and Dempsey is outsped. But Alakazam only used Future Sight. I don't know if maybe the AI didn't see the one-hit KO with Psychic, or if she was just trying to set up her own sweep, but this one AI choice lets Dempsey land his return. And he gets a critical hit. I don't know if my roll would have been high enough for the one-hit KO without it, but Dempsey is proving that he is deserving of his name. Last out is Sabrina's Venomoth, but Dempsey is able to hit a Rock Slide, ending the battle without taking damage from any of Sabrina's Pokemon. This went way better than I could have possibly imagined. I was so worried about Alakazam and his ridiculous special attack strat. With the more concerning of the level 43 cap gyms taken care of, I fly on down to Fuchsia City to take on Koga. But not before stopping at the game corner to pick up a Miracle Water for these hands, an item I know is going to come in clutch for us. With our team set and Dempsey waiting on the bench, we head into Koga's gym to face him. Koga laughs at a child trying to challenge him, but I mean, doesn't everyone start their Pokemon journey at 10? Does no one make it to their gym challenge in a timely manner? And what does him being a ninja master have to do with anything? This is a Pokemon battle. It's not like the trainers throw hands. With Koga's odd speech finished, we begin our battle for my 6th badge. I lead off with these hands as Koga sends out his first Pokemon, Coughing. For Coughing, I immediately go for Psychic, making sure he goes down before he can try to use Smokescreen. I need my accuracy as high as possible, with his Muck in the back with Minimize. Speaking of which, Muck comes out second, and these hands hits him with a hard Psychic for 2/3 of his health, and that's when he begins his Minimize strats. On turn 2, I try to use a second Psychic, only to miss due to the Muck's heightened evasion. Muck goes for Sludge, which doesn't do much, and fails to poison these hands. On the 3rd turn, these hands is able to hit his 3rd Psychic, finishing off the Goop Monster. Third out for Koga is his second Coughing, which goes down in the same way his first did. Now all that's left is Koga's ace, his Wheezing. These hands use a Psychic and just barely misses the one-hit KO on Wheezing. In return, we're hit with a Toxic. Koga uses a Hyper Potion, hoping to prolong the battle, and another Psychic puts him right back where we started the turn. But this Psychic causes a special defense drop. Nice! With that, Koga uses another Hyper Potion, but the damage is done, as a 3rd Psychic does more than enough to send the Wheezing packing. With Koga taken care of, the only gym leader left before our final face-off with the mysterious and unknown gym leader of Viridian City is Blaine, the Fire-type gym leader of Cinnabar Island. Now, with these hands on our team and that nifty Miracle Water item we grabbed, I think we might just barely be able to pull this one out. But just to make sure, I style on all the trainers by answering their quiz questions and then still taking their money. Stay on that grind. We arrive at Blaine with these hands feeling nice and full of Fire-type Pokemon experience points. We let him say his signature line, though I don't think we'll be needing a burn heal. I start the battle off with these hands, as Blaine sends out his Growlithe. These hands begins her sweep by setting up the rain, which causes Growlithe's Fire Blast to do a grand total of 12 damage to these hands. Unsure if she can take the heat, I have these hands cool things down with her first surf of the battle, promptly taking out Blaine's Growlithe, Ponyta, Rapidash, and his Ace Arcanine in one hit apiece. It was a close one, but we just barely managed to pull through. With everything else taken care of, all we have to do now is prep for the mysterious final gym trainer. The only thing left on my list is running through the Seafoam Islands to grab the Ice Beam TM, which I'm sure is going to be important for at least one of the Elite Four members. But instead I just buy it at the game corner. Plenty of Poké Dollars in my wallet, and there's not much use for anything else. We make our way through Viridian City Gym after having healed up after clearing out the trainers. But who do we find at the gym leader's podium but Team Rocket boss Giovanni? He says something about rebuilding Team Rocket, blah blah, he's the greatest trainer. Start the battle. For our third outing against Giovanni, we lead with these hands as he starts off with Rhyhorn. On turn 1, we set up the rain to do a repeat of the sweep we just used for Blaine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Rhyhorn uses his first turn to lower our speed with Scary Face, which could be problematic. But not against the Rhyhorn. We simply outspeed the Rhino for a second time and take him out with a quad super effective stab rain-boosted Miracle Water-boosted Surf. And I think that may just be the second Pokemon we've outright unalived in this run. Out next for Giovanni is his Dugtrio, which outspeeds and hit us not too hard with an Earthquake, as we once again roll another Pokemon over with Surf. Third out is Giovanni's Nidoqueen, who similarly hits a soft earthquake before similarly going down to another surf. Next up is Nidoking, and it's the same song and dance for the fourth Pokemon. Another earthquake survived, and another surfing accident. All is normal in California. Wait, this is the Kanto 8th Gen. Got a little confused there. Last out for Giovanni is his Ace Rhyhorn, and I have no idea why he isn't evolved, but like his brother, he is outsped and obliterated, meaning that our Kanto Gym challenge is over, and it's time to take on the Pokemon League. Or at least it would be, if I didn't still have some training to do for some of my underleveled Pokemon. The level cap jumps up for us from 50 to 60, the level of the last Elite Four members' Ace Pokemon. To get the levels we need, I head down to Cinnabar Island and get a ride from Bill, that odd Clefairy enthusiast from earlier, who takes us with him on a trip to one island. Thinking about this whole sequence really just further confuses me on how children are viewed in this universe. Like, on one hand, they'll comment on how weird it is that a child is beating gym leaders left and right, but on the other hand, random adults just take kids with them on vacations to mysterious islands. Sounds fishy to say the least. While Bill works on some island transfer gizmo, I run around the 3 islands, beating every Pokemon to a pulp with my muscle-bound Pokemon. I scare a group of bikers off an island and continue my journey to become stronger, as I come across a little girl who's lost in a forest on Island 3. It's a good thing I got here when I did, because I'm able to save her from a hostile Hypno, and return her to her dad. And we will never speculate again on what that Hypno wanted. With our training montage at an end, we head to the awe-inspiring Elite Four. But before we can make it to the first badge checkpoint, we're bothered again by a rival Nancy. Ugh, Nancy. Nancy claims she's going to whoop us as a warm-up for the Elite Four, and looking at her team, she's not bluffing. She leads off with her Pidgeot, as I start off with these hands. Because my Pokemon are leveled for the Elite Four, I have a bit of cushion in this fight, which is just as well, because I can't go losing one of my 4 Pokemon before even making it to the Elite Four. These hands start the battle off with an Ice Beam, and she gets the one-hit KO. A great start, as Nancy sends out her second Pokemon, Charizard. I didn't know if it would be Charizard or Alakazam, but this works in my favor, as I can go for Surf. As Charizard outspeeds these hands to get a critical hit wing attack. Holy crap! Thankfully, these hands is able to one-shot the Charizard, though being at only a third of her health. I have to be careful, especially since Nancy still has 2 Psychic types. Next up is Alakazam, exactly who I expected, and I have to switch out from these hands to Manny. But for the 3rd Alakazam fight in a row, he just goes for Future Sight. On the next turn, Manny is able to outspeed and hit Alakazam hard with an Earthquake, and manages to pull off the one-hit KO. Nancy sends in her Rhyhorn next, and I use my turn to switch out from Manny into Jackie, who's able to take not only Rhyhorn's takedown, but Alakazam's Future Sight attack, with a third of his health remaining. I'm sorry I ever called you useless. That was legendary. On the next turn, Jackie uses Sky Uppercut, and gets the one-hit KO. With only 2 Pokemon left, Nancy sends in her Execute, thankfully still unevolved. I decide to stay in with Jackie, as he's my best defensive Mon, and just go for a Secret Power. But get a crit, landing yet another one-hit KO. Jackie is on fire. Last up is Gyarados, who gets off an Intimidate, lowering Jackie's attack. Knowing we're at risk to a crit here, I swap Jackie out for Dempsey, who tanks a Hydro Pump with enough health to live through another non-crit Hydro Pump. But thanks to Leftovers recovery, we stand with enough HP to survive even a critical hit. Dempsey outspeeds Gyarados and does about 2/3 of his health, and even gets off a flinch with Rock Slide. And then one last time, we click on Rock Slide and breathe a sigh of relief that we just made it through our last rival battle without losing anyone. Now we're ready to head for Victory Road. As we pass through all of the magnificent gates on Route 23 that lead towards Victory Road, I can't help but wonder how exactly anyone else has been getting here if Giovanni has been off gallivanting as a mob boss for Arceus knows how long. Who are these trainers just sitting around in Victory Road? How long have they just been stonewalled by the Elite Four? And how am I supposed to do any better when I've only got 4 fighting types to my name? With all of these thoughts racing in my head, I make it to the Indigo Plateau, fly back to Lavender Town to ready up Dempsey, and then we head in to face the Elite Four. We arrive at an icy room and face the first challenge of the Elite Four, Lorelei. Fortunately for us, fighting types are one of the best matchup for an ice trainer. Although honestly, you could make an argument for most types being a good matchup for an ice trainer. Lorelei starts off the battle with her Dugong, as we send in Dempsey. We start off the battle pre-burnt and holding our trusty Leftovers, and use our first turn to further increase our damage using Bulk Up. Dugong hits for a quarter of our health, while Burn and Leftovers recovery even themselves out. Sort of. With the stage set, Dempsey uses his first Cross Chop, and not only lands it, but gets the critical hit, taking out Dugong in one blow. Next up for Lorelei is Slowbro, a tank if there ever was one, who has a psychic typing, and resists our stab fighting moves. Dempsey uses Return, doing 2/3 of the Slowbro's health, as he just uses Amnesia. Thankfully for the free turn, another Return finishes off the Slowbro. Lorelei's third Pokemon is the Water Ice type, Cloyster, and that's all we're going to say about that Pokemon. Dempsey once again goes for the super effective Cross Chop, finishing off the Bajingo in one hit. Fourth out is Jinx, an Ice Psychic type that is neutral to fighting moves, so we have Dempsey take her out with a clean Rock Slide, another one-hit KO in the books for Dempsey. Last up is a beastly Lapras, the entire reason I set up the bulk up on turn 1. I go for another Cross Chop, and it connects. A clean sweep for Dempsey on the first of the 4 elite members. We head onward from Lorelei's room into Bruno's chamber, a room of towering pillars and stone. He claims he spent his life with his fighting-type Pokemon and that they would grind us down with their superior power, a challenge I eagerly anticipate as he starts off our fighting-type showdown with an Onix? Seriously? Severely let down, I send in these hands, who uses Surf to send the Snake of Lies to his watery grave. Second out is another Onix? Are you kidding me? You only have 3 Pokemon left, and there are 5 Kanto fighting types. Clearly a fraud and a false prophet of Giratina, I must take down Bruno, not only for fighting-type trainers everywhere, but for the world. Another Surf takes out his stupid non-fighting clump of rocks, and he finally sends in a real fighting-type Pokemon in Hitmonchan. These hands use his Psychic against the boxing Pokemon, but he tanks it out, living with 1/3 of his health remaining. Bruno's Hitmonchan then hits these hands with a weak Rock Tomb, but his goal is to lower my speed, which he does successfully. Not wanting to deal with more damage on these hands than I have to, I swap into Jackie, making this a Hitmonchan showdown. Bruno's Hitmonchan hits Jackie for a little under half of his health on the swap in, and on the following turn, we're able to prove that we are the superior boxer with our secret power. Bruno's 4th Pokemon is Hitmonlee, the only fighting type I was unable to get, just rubbing it in my face. Hitmonlee hits us for 1/3 of our health, as we use Jackie's counter to turn the power back on him twofold, leaving him with just a sliver of health in the red. Knowing that Bruno will use his full restore, I opt to use Secret Power on the next turn, which does 2/3 of the Hitmonlee's health. On the next turn, I switch Jackie out with these hands, knowing that I'll need her in for Bruno's ace, as Hitmonlee just uses a Mega Kick, and it does what Mega Mist does. Learn that lesson the hard way, Bruno. Now you will too. On the next turn, I'm able to finish off the Hitmonlee with the Psychic, leaving just Bruno's ace, Machamp. With the 4-armed wall of muscle bearing down on me, I knew there was just one thing I could do. Use Psychic. It takes Machamp down to 1/3 of his health, as the beastly Pokemon just misses a Rock Tomb. And with that, we solidify our victory over Bruno and declare ourselves the true fighting-type masters. With the false prophet of Giratina defeated, we move on to the 3rd member of the Elite Four, an old and cunning-eyed woman named Agatha. And with a fire in her heart, she claims that she's going to show us what it truly means to have a Pokemon battle. She starts off with a Gengar, one of the 4 evolution trade Pokemon of the Kanto region, along with Alakazam and Machamp, with a special attack and speed stat that I take into account cautiously. Agatha's Gengar outspeeds, no surprise there, and starts off the battle with a double team. These hands tries to take advantage of the free turn, but misses her Psychic. On turn 2, Agatha goes for yet again another double team, and these hands tries to hit the ghastly foe, and lands the Psychic. But the Gengar lives on just a sliver of health. Knowing that Agatha is going to use her first full restore, I change tactics. While she heals, I have these hands set up a rain dance, getting ready to put out all reliable. On the next turn, Agatha outspeeds and uses a 3rd double team. Thankfully, these hands is able to land her Surf, which is more than enough to pull off the one-hit KO on the rain. I've never had any proof of this, but I've always felt, even as a kid, that moves like Surf and Earthquake had higher odds of hitting high evasion Pokemon. Agatha sends out her 2nd Pokemon, Golbat, as the rain continues to fall on our battlefield. Golbat outspeeds and hits these hands for 1/4 of her health, as she responds with a hard-hitting Ice Beam. But once again, Agatha's Pokemon lives with just a sliver of health in the red. Thinking that she's going to use another full restore, I switch to using Surf, but she just uses another Air Cutter to hit these hands to half of her HP. This means our Surf can finish off the Flying Menace without any more trouble from her. Unfortunately, this means that these hands is now at risk of going down to a crit from almost any powerful special attack-based move. Next out for Agatha is her Hunter, which I'm confident that these hands outspeeds, which she does, finishing off the Ghost and Poison type with a single Psychic. Agatha's next Pokemon out is her ace, a 2nd Gengar. I decide to play it a little risky to get off a Psychic, thinking that Agatha may go for more double team strats, but she uses Hypnosis, and lands it. Now these hands is asleep and unable to use her psychic. Knowing that the only possible move Agatha could go for this situation is either Dream Eater or Nightmare, I get these hands out of there and send in Dempsey. Because Dempsey is already burned, I know that Gengar's hypnosis strategy is useless on him, as well as it giving him his boost from Guts. Gengar has to use her only non-sleep-based move, Sludge Bomb, which does a third of Dempsey's HP. Dempsey then gets to hit back hard with a Rock Slide, that not only lands, but gets a crit and finishes off Agatha's ace in a whole one hit. Last out for Agatha is her Arbok, which gets an Intimidate off on Dempsey upon entering the field. Dempsey still manages to bring Arbok into the yellow with a return, but a Sludge Bob from the Arbok and Dempsey's burn is enough to leave him in the red, so I have to switch out. I can't risk losing Dempsey here on a low roll. I know I'll need him for the final Elite Four member. I swap Dempsey out for Jackie as Arbok goes for another Sludge Bomb. Jackie survives the hit easily, with 2/3 of his health remaining. On the next turn, Jackie outspeeds and hits Arbok with a secret power that just barely doesn't KO, as Arbok returns with another Sludge Bomb, this one poisoning Jackie. I know that Agatha is going to use another full restore, so I use my only free turn to switch out Jackie for Manny, as Agatha does indeed use her heal on her Frightening Cobra. Fortunately for my worn and ragged team, Manny has Earthquake, so we strike down the Arbok with a final one-hit KO, finishing the third member of the Elite Four. Last up on our list is Lance, the Dragon Master, and his team of primarily flying types. Of course. If Sabrina was our worst enemy, then Lance is our natural predator. Try not to focus on me being 10. With the bold proclamation that our Elite Four challenge ends with him, Lance begins our battle by sending out his first Pokemon, a monstrous Gyarados. We start off the battle by sending out Jackie to Toxic Gyarados in turn 1, as we're only hit with the Dragon Rage for 40 health. With our plan now in motion, we press counter, which I was totally stupid and forgot that Dragon moves are special in this generation, meaning counter was a bust. Weighing my odds, I send in Dempsey, who has the second highest HP of all my Pokemon, though he is still burned from our Elite Four setup. On the swap, he takes a Hyper Beam from Gyarados. I was not expecting that. But Dempsey, being the boss he is, had more than half of his HP still remaining. I then used Gyarados' recharge turn to do another pivot into these hands, our ace for this fight. On the following turn, I set up a Rain Dance to waste a turn, not knowing if Psychic would be strong enough to finish off the Gyarados, or would just cause Lance to full restore. But it was a pointless concern, as he just uses another freaking Hyper Beam. These hands tanks it even better than Dempsey did, and now has a free turn to finish off the Flying Fish. Next up from Lance is his ferocious defossilized Aerodactyl, who I know will outspeed. But his wing attack is taken quite well by these hands, who then hits back with a rain-boosted Surf, taking him down in one hit. The next Pokemon out for Lance is his ace, Dragonite, so I click on Ice Beam, and these hands outspeed Lance's ace. And with the 4-time super effective Ice Beam, the Dragon goes down easy. Lance then opts to switch into his first Dragonair, and we use another Ice Beam, and down goes another Dragon. Last up for Lance is his second Dragonair, who now knows his fate having seen it once before. With the joy I didn't think I'd get to feel, I have these hands use one last Ice Beam, and Dragonair survived. But Dragonair only used Safeguard. So, I have these hands use one last Ice Beam, and I get the higher roll this time to finish off the Dragon Master. I had done it. I defeated the Elite Four using only Fighting-type Pokemon, and now I could go beat the crap out of whoever apparently got here first. Lance gets around to telling me that I'm the champ, or that I would be, if stupid freaking Nancy hadn't gotten here first. Always naysaying, ever negative Nancy. The fire in my heart was reignited as I approached the champion's chamber, having healed my Pokemon, except for Dempsey's burn. Nancy goes on about being prepared for any possible team before claiming that he's the world's greatest trainer, a claim that we're going to have to put to the test. This is it, the final showdown. Nancy once again leads with his ever-reliable Pidgeot, as we lead off the battle with these hands. On turn 1, Nancy's Pidgeot finally outspeeds these hands and hits an Aerial Ace for about a quarter of her HP. These hands hits back hard with an Ice Beam that leaves Pidgeot with a quarter of her health left. On the next turn, I'm happy to find out that we were just within range of Nancy using her first full restore. We get a lower roll on the second Ice Beam, so Pidgeot hits these hands with another Aerial Ace down to half, and we can take out the frat boy Burb for one final time with another Ice Beam. Nancy follows her Pidgeot with her Charizard, and I know I'm at risk to going down to a crit Aerial Ace, but none of my Pokemon would be able to survive too. And given that nobody outspeeds Charizard, well, these hands toughs out the Aerial Ace and hits back hard with the Surf, which would have been enough to take out the Charizard, even if it didn't get an amazing crit. Third out for Nancy is her Alakazam, and I know I've been really lucky with Future Sights in this run, But with these hands so low on HP, there's no way Nancy doesn't go for the KO. So with a heavy heart, we say goodbye to these hands, who's been a rock for our team ever since she got here. But now that she's gone, our 3 remaining fighters are ready to avenge her. I send in Dempsey, and Alakazam once again chooses to set up with a future sight. The last mistake of hubris that he would ever have the misfortune of making. Dempsey uses his opening from his move to rush in and clobber the psychic monster with a guts-boosted full power return, ending him for what he did to these hands. As Nancy's finally evolved Executor makes his first and final appearance, I use my first turn to swap out from Dempsey into Jackie, who's going to do his best to survive the oncoming Giga Drain. He manages it well, and he hits back with a weak secret power, with Executor only missing a sleep powder. It's on this turn that Jackie survives Alakazam's future sight, and is left standing with only a third of his HP. On what I knew would be his last turn, I do what I can with his final moments and land a Toxic on the Palm Tree, taking some of the burden off of Dempsey and Manny. But Jackie survives with just 6 HP after tanking an Egg Bomb. Unfortunately, I'm now in the exact same situation I was in the last turn, so now Jackie has to make his noble sacrifice, getting some chunk damage off on the bulky Grass Psychic type. With Executor now at less than half health, he finishes off Jackie, but Manny and Dempsey vow that they won't let their friend's sacrifices be in vain. With Manny now safely on the field, and Execute taking enough poison damage to land right at third of his health, Manny unleashes an Aerial Ace of Rage against the towering tree, finally taking him out. Nancy sends out her 5th Pokemon, and someone in this game has finally evolved a Rhyhorn into Rhydon. Manny uses Brick Break to take Rhydon down below half, as Rhydon just decides to waste his only appearance of the game using Scary Face. Knowing I'll still outspeed, Manny finishes off Nancy's Rhydon, leaving only her final Pokemon, Gyarados. With Manny at half speed and missing a third of his physical power, it doesn't look good for our little pig monkey. As Nancy outspeeds and her Gyarados uses Dragon Rage, Manny is able to hit his Rock Tomb, which doesn't do a lot of damage after Intimidate, but it gets off the much-needed speed drop. On the next turn, Manny is able to once again outspeed Nancy's Gyarados and hit a second Rock Tomb, taking the beast below half. But as soon as I'd started to feel the grasp of victory, Gyarados struck out with a Thrash that crits, instantly knocking Manny out. This loss hit me hard, and even though I was able to work with Dempsey to finish the fight, landing one last guts-boosted Rock Slide, we both felt more melancholy than victorious when the dust settled. But we had done it. My ragtag group of Fighting-type Pokemon had completed a hardcore FireRed Nuzlocke. Alright, with that in the bag, I want to thank each and every person who's gotten to this point in my first Nuzlocke. It was one of the most fun experiences I've ever put myself through, and I plan on doing a Fighting-type Monolocke for every gen. But don't feel the need to subscribe for any notifications, as I've been sitting on this finished Nuzlocke since this February. I just bought myself a new computer to do all of my editing and recording with, so it should make future edits a whole lot easier. I'd also like to give a huge shout out to Terry Godmother, who is pretty much the only friend who encourages me to keep working on my more creative endeavors. And a huge thank you to the content creators that I'm subbed to, who always keep the spark of creativity and imagination alive in me. Looking forward to seeing all of you guys next time. This is Swolbi Kenobi, signing off.